Here, I'm your teacher, Shuchishmita Chatterjee, and let's go to the next part of the text. So, welcome, dear students, to a class of English literature where we are going to deal today to the second part of this text. Let's read. Dearest Connie, I write to you in a much happier frame of mind because something wonderful has just happened that I must tell you about at once. An army officer is writing a letter to his wife, sharing something beautiful, something nice that has just happened. That I must tell you about at once. We were all standing to in our trenches yesterday morning. Christmas morning. It was crisp and quite all about. As beautiful a morning as I have ever seen. As cold and frosty as a Christmas morning should be. So, some soldiers were standing in some or basically in their respective long deep ditches in the ground, which are known as trenches, where soldiers hide from the enemy. So they were basically standing in their respective trenches, and something wonderful happened over there. And it was a Christmas morning when this had happened. So a beautiful morning as it can be, as cold and frosty as a Christmas morning should be. So it was too cold and snowfall was all around. So giving it a look of beauty as well as feeling with that very emotion or feeling with that very charm as a Christmas morning should be like. I should like to be able to tell you that we began it, but the truth I'm ashamed to say is that Fritz began it. So Fritz is a common name of a soldier, or basically a German soldier. Fritz is a common name for German soldier. First, someone saw a white flag waving from the trenches opposite. So, a flag was being waved from the other side of the enemies, and they were signaling something. Then they were calling out to us from across no man's land. Some soldiers were calling out to the soldiers of this side from no man's land or across no man's land. No man's land means basically that part of land or that piece of land which belongs to no one, means neither of the countries facing each other. So some soldiers from there were calling out to them, "Happy Christmas, Tommy," specifically to a soldier over there named Tommy. "Happy Christmas." When we had got over the surprise, some of us thought that would be a trick. Specifically, it was the narrator. So, although when they got the surprise and they were to some extent alerted and they thought that was a trick, but then also some of them, means some of us over here, see students, shouted back Same to you, Fritz. Same to you. I thought that would be that we all did. But then, suddenly one of them was up there in his grey greatcoat and waving a white flag. Don't shoot, lad, someone shouted, and no one did. Then there was another frizz up on the parapet, and another. Keep your heads down, I told the men. So, seeing basically one after another of the soldiers, specifically German soldiers, from other side, he thought that that would be a trick. But it wasn't. One of the Germans was waving a bottle above his head. It is Christmas Day, Tommy. We have schnapps. We have sausage. We meet you. Yes. So, one of the Germans was waving a bottle above his head. In order to celebrate, waving a bottle means or actually calls for an occasion of celebration. And it happens mostly during Christmas. So it is Christmas Day, Tommy. We have schnapps. So one of the German soldiers told that they have a German drink made from grain. So they have a kind of German drink and they have some meat with them or pieces of meat. We meet you. Yes. By this time, there were dozens of them walking towards us across no man's land and not a rifle between them. So we meet you? Yes. By this time, there were dozens of them. So many of them were walking towards the other side of the soldiers across no man's land. So that very area which is considered to belong to no one and which is a portion, perhaps a meeting point that soldiers use for some friendly purposes and not a rifle between them. Little Private Morris was the first up. Come on, boys, what are we waiting for? And then there was no stopping them. I was the officer. I should have stopped them there and then, I suppose. But the truth is that it never even occurred to me I should. All along their line and ours, I could see men walking slowly towards one another. Grey coats. So they were in grey coats, khaki coats, meeting in the middle. So they were exchanging friendly gestures to each other. So it was a wonderful sight. They were exchanging friendly gestures in the portion of a land which belonged to no one. And I was one of them. I was part of this. In the middle of the war, we were making peace. So in the middle of the war, in the middle of some formal rules, formal rules and regulations set by the respective governments that led or those led to violence, in the form of war. So some rules and regulations, those were set by the respective governments. Those led to turmoil. Those led to war. We were, or the soldiers, better to say, the soldiers were making peace. So, perhaps both of the sides, or soldiers of both of the sides, knew that because of some selfish needs, the respective governments were heading towards the war, which they don't want themselves. So they turned the occasion of Christmas as something, or as an occasion which would exchange gestures of peace. So they were going towards that path which was showing that they were making peace with each other. Thank you, dear students. Today up to this.